What's going on, everybody? It's AG here. Today, I'm going to be revealing my still too early post-spring SEC power rankings going into the season. I'm going to have a couple more come out. I'll have my too early and then my actual preseason power rankings. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Let me know your rankings down in the comments section as we move along. And if you are new here, subscribe for more content like this. First off, number 16, Mississippi State. Last year, 2-10. So on the key players for most of these teams, I'm going to have their quarterback and then a new transfer weapon they've got coming in. Blake Shapen, been at Baylor before and has had success. He won a Big 12 championship, actually. Jeff Lebby came in last year, struggled in the SEC, and even with this backfield of Blake Shapen and Fluff Bothwell coming in, I still don't see Mississippi State making too much noise in the SEC, if any. There's really not many opportunities for them to win, especially with like Vanderbilt being a little better this year. It's just probably not going to happen, because every other roster is going to be so much more talented than Mississippi State. It's just probably not in the cards. So it's 16 Mississippi State, 15 Kentucky. Mark Stoops, ever since he took the A&M job for like a day and then backtracked, it wasn't good last year. Last year, 4-8. Zach Calzada coming in at quarterback. He's put up some really good numbers previously at Incarnate Word, previously at A&M as well. But can that offense get a little better with that? Possibly, but having success at Incarnate Word is not having success at SEC in the SEC necessarily. So it's going to be a struggle, I think. They could flip-flop with a couple of these teams I'm going to talk about here in a minute, but really not much room for growth here, I don't think, for Kentucky. You could be better than 14 and 13, but I think after that, there's just a huge step to where the talent barrier is just too big. So 14, we've got Auburn. This admittedly might be a little low. I've seen them in a lot of people's top 25s. Hugh Freeze, I think, is a pretty good head coach, but it just wasn't very good last year for Auburn at 5-7. They bring in Jackson Arnold, formerly at Oklahoma. It didn't work out there. He got benched, and obviously he's at Auburn now. So we'll see. You're bringing in a talented quarterback. Can that translate to some wins in the SEC? We'll see. But I don't know. I thought they'd be a little better last year, admittedly. Not saying challenge for a college football playoff, but maybe 7 or 8 wins, and that just didn't happen. I think Hugh Freeze is a good head coach, like I said, but again, it's got to happen at some point. I thought a couple years ago after they almost beat Alabama, I thought that might be turning the tide towards Auburn, really trending up, but it just hasn't happened. Now, sometimes teams are a year late. I think they're going to be really good one year, and then they're not, but the year later they bounce back. So that's a possibility here. So Auburn could be underseeded, but as of right now, I got them at 14. 13, Oklahoma. Last season, 6-7. They bring in a really good backfield. John Mateer from Washington State, pretty good dual threat guy from the portal. Jaydn at Cal put up some tremendous numbers at running back. And Brent Venables has a talented roster, but I'm not sold on Brent Venables as the head coach. I don't think he's a very good head coach. And I think that's going to limit Oklahoma because, again, they have talent to not necessarily saying make the playoff, but they have talent to contend for probably 10 wins, and I just don't see that happening. This backfield is nasty. You put this backfield with another offensive coaching coordinator, or offensive coach. I know Brent Venables isn't an offensive coach, but you put him with another coaching philosophy, and I think they might be all right. But with Brent Venables, he's a heck of a DC, when he was at Clemson, but as head coach at Oklahoma, it just hasn't worked. So we'll see. Jackson Arnold experiment is done. So it could trend up. Again, I like this backfield a lot. They both put up numbers in like the Pac-12, but again, similar to what I said earlier with Zach Calzada, there's a difference in that conference and the SEC. So we'll see. But 13, I've got Oklahoma. Number 12, Missouri. Missouri, probably the biggest talent drop-off from last year. 10-3 last year. Really good team last year. Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Marcus Carroll. Eli Drinkwitz, I think, one of the more underrated coaches in the country. He wins a lot of games, so we'll see. And this is more giving him the benefit of the doubt because they don't necessarily have the talent, I don't think. Like, I could see them dropping a few more. Like anybody from Kentucky, Oklahoma, all those teams in that little range, I think they could, you could flip-flop them either way with Auburn as well. Bring in Bo Pribula, Penn State's backup quarterback. They apparently gave him the bag to come to be the quarterback at Missouri, so we'll see. They've seen some film on him. He is from Missouri, I think, so they believe in him somewhat. But again, they lose so much talent, they're going to drop back a little bit because they've been on a pretty good run these last few years. Number 11, we have Arkansas. Arkansas last season 7-6. They have a talented roster. Taylen Green is a freak of nature as far as how he can run, how he's built. Transferred over from Boise last year and had some success. I think they could trend up. They're not going to contend for a playoff spot, but I think they could challenge for 8-9 wins, somewhere in that range. But it's going to probably be pretty similar to last season. But Arkansas is a team that they're probably going to beat the teams they should beat, but they're a threat, I would say, to upset one of the bigger teams, one of the better teams. But I don't see them winning the SEC or anything. Number 10, Texas A&M. Last season, 8-5. I thought Mike Elko did a pretty good job. Now, some of those players were Jimbo's guys, so that's where I'm a little tore on how good are they actually going to be. Like, how much was that from Jimbo's dudes? You got Marcel Reed back at quarterback. He kind of got the reins towards the end of the year, did a pretty solid job, good dual threat quarterback. You bring in Kevin Concepcion, NC State wide receiver, gives you a big target out wide. Texas A&M is kind of my biggest question mark here. Them and Auburn, both big question marks. I don't know if they're going to trend up and kind of contend a little bit for the SEC. Like, they really got actually pretty close to making the SEC championship last year. Or is year two for Mike Elko going to be even worse than last year? Because, again, it's all his guys now instead of maybe a few Jimbo guys mixed in. We'll see. All right, number 9, Ole Miss. Last season, 10-3. Key players for them, Austin Simmons takes over for Jackson Dart at quarterback. How is he going to look? Former, I think he was a 3-star. This is more faith in Lane Kiffin. The roster is talented, but again, you lost a lot to the draft. And also, you're replacing Jackson Dart, which has been your starter. The question mark for me is, if you couldn't make the playoff and get the job done with that roster you've had these last few years, is when is it going to happen? If you couldn't make the playoff with Jackson Dart, who just got drafted in the first round, how are you going to make the playoff with Austin Simmons? And the answer is, I don't see it happening. So I could see Ole Miss dropping a few spots, maybe in pass by A&M, even Auburn, maybe. Arkansas, we'll see, though. All right, number 8, Tennessee. Lost a ton from last year's playoff team, 10-3 last year. Key player for them, Joey Aguilar. That is Nico's replacement, but they don't lose just Nico. They lose a lot. They lose Dylan Sampson, use the edge rusher, James Pierce, lose a ton of dudes that made serious impacts for this team last year. So how is Josh Heupel going to do? We'll see. Could be similar to a Missouri situation here, where you have such an outflux of talent that it really impacts you this year. I think Josh Heupel's a heck of a coach, though. I would say a top 10 coach. So I think he can get it done. Joey Aguilar, despite last year, you go back to 2 years ago, 3 years ago, put up some seriously good numbers at Appalachian State. Dual threat guy, he can run, he can pass, he can do a lot. Now, it's a big jump in competition. We'll see, but I think he'll be okay. I think he can do what Nico did. But again, the bigger question mark for me is not quarterback, but the rest of the roster. I think Joey Aguilar can mirror what Nico did, if not better. But replacing the talent of Dylan Sampson, all the other guys they lost, how are they going to replicate that production? It's going to be a lot from Josh Heupel. All right, number 7, Alabama. Last season, 9-4. Key players, I've got both their quarterbacks listed here. As of right now, it's assumed Ty Simpson is going to get the job. He was the backup last year. You've also got Keelon Russell, freshman from Duncanville, coming in. Kalen DeBoer has made the playoff before at Washington. Really good track record of winning ball games. Now, the question mark here is they lose all of Saban's guys almost. They're all gone now out the door. So can Kalen DeBoer compete in the SEC with his roster? You lose Jalen Milroe, you lose a bunch of other guys. Now, they're still going to have some talent left over, but last year wasn't really too inspirational. That roster should have made the playoff. They were really good enough to make the playoff, no doubt. And that roster, I think, takes a step back. So question marks there. And Alabama's another one that could move up or down. Kalen DeBoer, again, he won at Washington, but last year, what he did at Bama, I wasn't super impressed. I thought they really should have been better than 9-4 with that roster they had. They were way too talented to be 9-4. And again, similar to what I was saying with Kiffin, if you couldn't win with last year's roster, how the heck are you going to win with this year's roster? Now, the saving grace there is maybe those guys were still tied to Nick Saban mentally. So, this is sort of a you're not my coach situation, mentally. I don't know, maybe. So we'll see with him having a full offseason. But I don't know. I'm a little hesitant on how good Alabama can be this year. I don't know. All right, number 6, Vanderbilt. This might be a little high, admittedly. Last season, 7-6. But this is a big belief in Diego Pavia. We saw what he did last year with a lackluster roster. they have improved this roster a little bit through the portal. He's got multiple weapons coming in through the portal that might can benefit him going forward, whether it's running back, whether it's receivers, tight end, whatever. But multiple skill guys coming in that I think can help this team win. Now, again, this might be a little high because Alabama's roster as a whole definitely way more talented, but this is pretty much Diego Pavia, the quarterback, getting the benefit of the doubt that I think he's a baller, he's a gamer, and I think he can win ball games in the SEC. I'm not saying Vandy has a chance to make the playoff, but Diego Pavia is talented enough to win them ball games, and I think he's going to. Number 5, LSU. Last season, 9-4. They've got Garrett Nussmeier back. Heisman potential for Garrett Nussmeier. He puts up a lot of numbers. I think LSU, excuse me, should make the playoff this year. Brian Kelly, I know a lot of people say he's overrated as a coach. He might be underrated because he gets crapped on so much that he's won pretty much wherever he's been. So you got to give him the benefit of the doubt there. And I think this is a good roster this year. They lost some O-line play, Will Campbell, Emory Jones, but Garrett Nussmeier, I think, can get them over the hump this year. But if it's not now, it's going to come a question of win with Brian Kelly. Every coach before him and like the last 3 coaches, I think at LSU have won national championships. So we'll see. The roster's talented, but again, the conference, the SEC is tough. Number 4, Florida. Last season, 8-5, trending up for Billy Napier. Now there were some question marks going in, like, hey, is this his last year? Is he going to get canned in the middle of the year? Ended up turning it around. Once he handed the keys to DJ Lagway, all bets were off. And DJ Lagway, I would argue, a top 5 quarterback in the nation, talent-wise. And I think he's going to lead Florida to the playoffs this year. I think they're going to be legit. And the way they trended towards the end of the season, once they made the change from Graham Mertz to DJ Lagway, I think Billy Napier's got things rolling with his roster. Florida, playoff team to watch next year. All right, number 3, South Carolina. Man, I'm dying here. South Carolina, last season, 9-4. Key players, Lenoris Sellers, probably the number 1 pick in the draft next year. South Carolina this close to making the playoff last season. I thought they had a better argument than Alabama or Ole Miss. But I think this is the year. I think Beamer's going to get them to the playoffs. Lenoris Sellers is legit. Dual threat guy. Great build. He's going to probably be the number 1 pick, like I said, in the draft. I would say even over Arch Manning. South Carolina, I think, is going to be good this year. That's why I've got them at number 3. Now, 3, 4, 5, admittedly, I think you could probably rotate them either way, but I've got them in this order for now. Number 2 and number 1, I think there's a clear-cut 2 and 1, but you could flip-flop them either way. Right now, I've got Georgia at number 2. 11-3 last year. You know, Carson Beck got hurt. They lose ETN at running back, but the belief for me here, number 1, Kirby Smart, obviously best coach in the country. But Gunnar Stockton in his playoff game against Notre Dame, I thought he actually looked pretty good. I know the numbers weren't great, but they dropped a lot of balls, the receivers. But Gunnar Stockton, I thought, looked, like I said, legit against a pretty good Notre Dame defense. I thought he did good. Hit his receivers in stride. They just couldn't catch the ball. So as of right now, I've got them at number 2 because of that. It seems like the skill guys for Georgia are lacking a little bit from what they usually are. So that's why I'm giving Texas the edge right now, and I've got Texas at 1 because of that, because I think they've got the skill player edge. Arch Manning offers you a dual threat capability. He can run, he can pass. They were this close again the last 2 years to making the college football national championship. Can Arch Manning get them over the hump? We're going to see. 13-3, this roster is experienced now. Steve Sarkisian is a little more experienced as a head coach, a little more seasoned. That's why I've got Texas at number 1. They've got a lot of NFL draft potential on that roster. So just to recap here, the SEC rankings you can see over here. Mississippi State at 16, Kentucky at 15, Auburn at 14, Oklahoma 13, Missouri 12, Arkansas 11, A&M 10, Ole Miss 9, Tennessee 8, Bama 7, Vandy 6, LSU 5, Florida 4, South Carolina 3, Georgia 2, and Texas number 1. So those are my current, still too early post-spring SEC power rankings. Let me know yours. Who's your number 1? Who do you think the team to beat in the SEC is? How many teams do you think make the playoff? Who do you think makes the playoff? Let me know. Comment down below. Make sure to like this video. And if you're not yet, subscribe.